Have you ever opened a jar of pasta sauce, pickles, or jam and heard that satisfying little pop? It almost feels like the jar is announcing that it's fresh. In fact, many people have learned to expect that sound, and some even become suspicious if they open a new jar and don't hear it at all. But where does that popping sound actually come from? Is there some tiny mechanism hidden in the lid? Why does it only happen once? And why do manufacturers design jars that way in the first place? So, why do jars pop when opened? Let's find out right here on History of Simple Things. That familiar pop comes from the seal between the lid and the jar. When foods like jam, peanut butter, pasta sauce, or pickles are packaged, manufacturers want to keep air and bacteria from getting inside. To do that, they create a tight seal. Many foods are placed into jars while still hot. As the contents cool, the air inside cools and contracts, lowering the pressure inside the jar. This creates a partial vacuum. Meanwhile, the air outside remains at normal atmospheric pressure. Because the pressure outside is greater, it pushes the lid downward and keeps it tightly sealed. That pressure difference is what makes some jars difficult to open. The moment the seal breaks, outside air rushes into the jar to equalize the pressure. That sudden movement of air causes the metal lid to flex slightly, producing the distinctive popping sound. Once the pressures inside and outside become equal, the lid no longer experiences that strong force. That's why you only hear the pop once. Afterward, reopening the jar won't produce the same sound. In simple terms, the pop is the sound of air pressure returning to normal. Many jar lids have a small button-like center. When the jar is properly sealed, the vacuum pulls this center inward. Once the seal is broken, the center often springs upward, sometimes with a noticeable pop. This serves as a simple safety feature. If the center of a new jar is already raised before opening, it could mean that the seal has been compromised. That's why many people instinctively check the top before buying a jar. Temperature is what makes this whole process possible. Warm air takes up more space. During packaging, both the food and the air inside are hot. As everything cools, the air molecules slow down and occupy less volume, creating lower pressure inside the jar. This natural cooling process creates the vacuum without needing anything complicated. Home canning works the same way. Anyone who has made homemade jam may have heard lids popping as the jars cool. Those sounds are actually signs that the seals are forming properly. The vacuum seal helps preserve food by keeping outside air and microorganisms away. Bacteria, molds, and yeasts need the right conditions to grow. By preventing contamination, manufacturers can keep food fresh much longer. That's why unopened jars can sit safely on store shelves for months or even years, depending on the product. Not every jar is equally easy to open. A stronger vacuum creates a tighter seal. Different lid designs, materials, and temperature changes during storage can also affect how firmly the lid is held in place. That's why people use tricks like running warm water over the lid or tapping it gently to help loosen stubborn jars. Once the seal is broken, opening the lid becomes much easier. Plastic containers and squeeze bottles often use different sealing methods. Some rely on foil seals or plastic membranes instead of vacuum pressure. Because of that, they may not produce the same sound when opened. Glass jars with metal lids are especially good at producing that familiar pop because the metal flexes when the pressure changes. That's why opening a jar of pickles feels different from opening a plastic bottle of ketchup. That little sound does more than satisfy our ears. If a brand new jar opens without any pop at all, or if the center button was already raised beforehand, the vacuum seal may have failed. In some cases, that means the food has been exposed to air or contamination. Manufacturers generally advise avoiding products with damaged lids, leaks, or bulging tops. So while the absence of a pop doesn't always mean the contents are unsafe, it can be an important clue. In a world filled with advanced technology, it's easy to overlook the clever engineering hidden in ordinary objects. Something as simple as a glass jar combines physics, food preservation, and smart design in a way most of us never think about. Yet every time that little pop echoes from the kitchen, it's a reminder that even the smallest everyday experiences can have surprisingly interesting stories behind them. It also encourages a bit of curiosity in daily life, where even routine actions like opening food can reveal how carefully designed systems support safety. That tiny pop you hear when opening a jar is actually a small lesson in physics. It's the sound of air rushing in as a vacuum seal is broken, a seal created simply by heat, cooling, and differences in air pressure. What seems like an ordinary everyday noise is really evidence that the food inside has been protected and preserved. It's a clever system that helps keep products fresh and gives us confidence that the seal was intact. So the next time you hear that familiar pop, you'll know it's more than just a sound. It's a reminder that even the simplest things often have fascinating stories behind them. And that's another everyday mystery explained right here on History of Simple Things. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.